Okay, thank you for joining JMT Consulting today for our webinar, Sage Intacct, the Winning General Ledger for Nonprofit Organizations. My name is Kim Fellman, and I'll be your moderator throughout today's webinar. This webinar will be led by JMT's Sage Intacct Sales Engineer, Mark Braisher. Mark will properly introduce himself to you in just a moment, but before he can do that, I'm going to cover a few housekeeping notes. First, we are recording today's webinar and will email it to you within 24 hours along with the slide deck. We would also love to hear from you during today's presentation. If you have a question, please feel free to send it through the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. We will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end where Mark will answer any questions that have been submitted. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Mark to get us started now.
Thank you. It's good to be with you today. Let me switch my screen over and get it started. Let me first introduce myself. As was mentioned, my name is Mark Braisher. I am sales engineer at JMT Consulting. I am relatively new to the company, but I'm not new to nonprofit accounting. I have been in the nonprofit world for about 30 years and served most of that time as a CFO of one organization or another, and was actually, in fact, a customer of JMT with Intacct, and so it's been a pleasure to be a part of the team here. And I can say from a CFO side of the desk that I am confident in Intacct, confident in JMT and what they can do for you. So we're going to look at the software today. There's some characteristics about Intacct that I think are important for you to know before we get into actual demonstration. There is the fact that Intacct is able to integrate with other softwares, whether it's financial planning and analysis, human resources, payroll, mobile employee expense and time tracking, automated invoice payment processing, fundraising, grant management, etc. JMT can refer you to a significant number of additional software that integrates well with Intacct, but you can always integrate with the software of your choice. And that is one of the best selling points, I think. One of the bigger selling points for Intacct is the fact that it can integrate with these additional softwares. Intacct does accounting, and they do accounting with statistical in addition to finance, but they do not pretend to do all the pieces. And we know at JMT that there are some softwares out there that can do other things better, and we can help you with those as well, but they can integrate. Another thing about Intacct, of course, is the automation, workflows, automated processes for greater control, more efficiency. More time as a CFO, you have the opportunity to spend more time on strategy. I wish that I had $1 for all the hours I spent over the last 15, 20 years in working with various softwares, and the time that I spent with Excel sheets, pulling information out of the software or off the books, and then manipulating it with spreadsheets. And trying to get the information that I needed. With the automated processes within Intacct, the idea is that we're going to give you visibility, we're going to give you automation to speed up that process, make it much more efficient, and allow you as the CFO or whatever position you have in the company and the organization to be able to spend your time on really what is you were hired to do, and that is to make intentional, proactive decisions based on what is happening now. And so it's automated. The other piece of the puzzle, third piece of Intacct that I think it's important for you to know is visibility. And we're going to spend most of our time, in fact, on the issue of visibility today. The dashboards and real-time reports that Intacct provides for you is almost, I would say almost infinite. I'm sure it's not infinite, but the ability for you to edit the built-in reports. There are 20-some reports already built into the system, and you can take those then and customize them to fit what you need and to arrange them the way that you need. And you're able to, with the reports as well as dashboards, be able to see the information that you need. And again, to do that in real time, and to be able to do that in such a manner as to be able to spend your time on strategy and being proactive with decisions. And probably there's never been another time in our lives where this is more important, as we all are experiencing crazy disruptions in society and finances and nonprofits with everything that's going on. And so with that, the ability to see things in real time and not spend our time with Excel sheets trying to just get the information out of the system that we need. So let's dive into this today. As you can see, one of the best features of Intacct is their dashboards. Just like the reporting systems, the dashboards at Intacct are just about infinite. There are a variety of things that you can put on the dashboards, and we're going to look at some of those today, but they're about as unique and customized as your organization is unique, and so you can do that. So what the dashboard allows us to do, it allows us to see at a glance what is going on in your organization. You can highlight and monitor data, financial data, as you can see from the reports and stuff. It also can highlight and allow you to see at a glance statistics. In addition, I mentioned a moment ago, in addition to financial data, Intacct has the ability to handle statistical data. As in this case, I've highlighted the number of gifts compared to the previous year to this particular organization, the amount of contribution per individual, per gift, and compared with last year. And so you're able to do statistics as well. And as far as a CFO, that's of interest to you, but also that information can be the dashboards can be set up on role-based or however you want to set them up, but you can set one up for the CEO as well, and the CEO can look at this at a glance and be able to see some of these statistical as well as any of the reports information for them. I know in my experience, my CEO always wanted access to the accounting software, and then every time they needed a report, they would call me and say, Mark, I need this report. And I always wanted to say, well, you have the software, get the report yourself. But they were spending their time doing other things, and so they didn't spend their time learning the software as I had. And so in this particular system, you're able to set up a dashboard for them. You're able to, the CEO can have a dashboard that fits them and provides for them the information they need. It is always in real time. It is always adjusting. If the data is adjusting, if your controller or AP or AR are entering new information, then the dashboards for the various individuals who have dashboards set up, that information is adjusting as well. In addition to that, you can set your filters within the dashboard. You can change the date, you can change the departments, funds, projects, and grants. When you look into Intacct, in addition to having statistical accounts and having GL accounts, it also has dimensions. And if we wanted to look for just a brief moment over at dimensions, you can see here, I'm just not going deep at this, but you can see the number of dimensions. And so you can go into these dimensions and not only track as we used to do the maybe funds and departments and GL code, but also to track these various other dimensions. And the dimensions themselves are customized. And so they come preset, but you can edit those and you can adjust and you can edit those to customize to fit you. And so in doing that, if I were to go over here and change some of the departments, and if I wanted to just pull up, if I was CFO or CEO and wanted to just, rather than all the departments, I wanted to just hit the counseling service departments, the numbers change to fit the what I'm asking for. And again, the ability to filter right here on the front page, right here on the dashboard, is just really, really convenient and able to see at a glance what's going on. So let's look at some specific reports within the dashboard. And by doing this, we'll give you some idea of the reporting capabilities. We're not going to go into how to set up a report. It's not a how-to, but so you can see the end result. But the how-to is relatively easy. Training that JMT provides for you will allow you to customize those. And as I said, when you when you buy in and you purchase subscription to Intacct, you have the reports built in, which are very intuitive, and then you can customize those to fit you. So let's walk through these. First report that I want to look at is a 990 statement of functional expenses. And from section 9 of the 990, the dreaded financial report that we have to do each year for the federal government. And if you'll notice here, you're able to, down the left side, in the first column, you have your different accounts, but across here you have with multiple dimensions. We are able to set up the departments and department groups that the 990 requires. And so by doing this, program services, so this is a number of departments that go in together, and you're able to, at a glance, see what is going to show up in the 990 in the various areas, what's going to show up, what's going to be the piece from your audit, and you can see that right there. In addition to that, not only when you go to the report section, and this is not the report section, it's simply the dashboard. If you were to go here and we were to go over to reports, you have access to all the reports, but even from the dashboard, you're able to drill down into specific areas and see the data behind the line item that you have, and you can continue to drill down on that all the way to the specific journal entry. And you can see all of those. By doing that, this particular entry does not have an attachment, but if there's an attachment with documentation for that, you're able to see that as well. And so all the way from the dashboard, you're able to go that deep. So a non-accounting person can take this particular dashboard and can drill down in this dashboard and see what they need to see, and to go very, very much deep into the details. So that's the 990. Let's roll down and go to the revenue by customer. Some things that this particular report shows us is the ability to put the dimensions. We all are used to the traditional with the accounts, the GL counts down the first column, but this allows us to do to switch that, and it allows us to put the dimensions down the side. In this particular case, it's the departments, and then you have these account groups for your column headings. And so we're able to look and see in each one of these. In this particular case, it is these particular departments and able to see that, but we're able to flip that. And again, you're able to drill down on each of these points. The third report I wanted to show you on the dashboard is the expenditures, this particular one with the expenditures that has budget versus the actual, then versus the commitments. And so the commitments are POs that have been approved. You may not have an invoice, so it's not in your payables yet, so it's not in the accrual books yet. But what this is allowing us to do, this particular facet of Intacct, is allow us to have multiple books. So you have your accrual book or your cash book, most likely you're all in accrual books, but so you have that, which is your regular normal operating book, but you can also have additional user-defined books. And this particular one, it is commitments. And so we've created a book that is user-defined called commitments. And so purchase orders, when they are completed, show up when we call for them here. So if you were to look at this report, and let's say we were to look here at program expenses, You'd be finishing the year and you had a budget of 440,000 and you spent 441, so it's $1,000 over. It's no big thing. But then you look over here because we're bringing in this particular report not just the accrual book, but we're adding a column for the commitment book as well, and we see, oh no, we have made we've approved a purchase order for $14,000, and that puts us significantly over our budget on that particular one. And so this could be a report that's beneficial for a variety of people, but sometimes the CEO wonders, why do these numbers change on me like that? Well, the reason they changed is because we had commitments in the pipe, and in this particular case, in a purchase order, but they weren't in our books yet. They weren't in an accrual book yet. But because Intacct allows you to have these multiple books and to report from them at any time, you can see these things. And so all of a sudden, when you tie your actual with any additional commitments, you can see you're over $14,000 over budget on that particular line item. And so the additional books is a significant piece. It's a significant way, again, in the day in which with activities and everything that's going on today, how fast things are moving, this ability to not be caught off guard on those is quite an impressive thing. So let's look at this last report that I'm going to look at for today on this, and that is just a revenue and expenditure report. And you can see as we go across, we have our GL accounts down the first column, and we have our departments across the top, so the various departments and how they are doing. And then we have some highlighting in this, and allows us to see, and again, for someone looking on, maybe a CEO, maybe a board member, and be able to see at a glance, in this particular case, in food services, where do they get most of their revenues from? Well, it's from service fees, and that makes a lot of sense. But the youth center, where do they get most of theirs? Do they get them from contributions or grants? No, they get them from tuition. And so this particular report, what I did was I highlighted in blue and by column and by revenue and then expenses, listed the things that were the highest numbers and from dark to light. And that allows you at a glance, your eyes pop to those things that really affect your bottom line and affect each department. So that gives you a rundown not only of this particular portion of the dashboard, but it also gives you a rundown of how the reports work. And as I said, and as you can see very quickly on this, it is the possibilities on the reporting is almost infinite. In addition to these scorecards across the top that we have, efficiency, number of gifts, amounts, contributions, statistical as well. And I know that if you do not have a software that uses statistical, that is something that you are figuring on an Excel sheet somewhere. Somebody is wanting to know. In my past life, I was CFO of a private college, and we constantly wanted to know, what does it cost per student for us to do this or that? And so we were always doing that before Intacct. We were doing that. I was doing that on Excel. I was doing it, but in this particular case, can set it up. It's on the dashboard, and we can monitor that. So in addition to the scorecards, in addition to the reports, you also have these graphs. You're able to see, again, at a glance, where is in this particular one, I've got where are the expenses being spent, where are the revenues being spent. And so these graphs allow, again, for us to see at a glance what is happening. So that gives you an idea of a dashboard. The dashboard is, you'll live and breathe right here. Your CEO will live and breathe right here because of everything that can be seen and edited however you want to do that. So let's go into another area of Intacct. Let's look at some projects and grants, look at project management for just a moment. Won't go too deep in this, but if we look at the particular grants and how you can manage your projects or grants, I want to show you some things that can happen with this. It not only tracks finances coming and going within your project, within your grants or particular projects, but also it has a significant amount of additional information that can be retained and used as well. So let's walk through this particular one. Let me pull up another one here. Let's pull up this health initiative. Okay, so as we see here, you have the general information, you have the name, you have that it is a grant, so on and so forth. But as we go further in it, we are beginning to see other things that we can do with this. We see that it's active. We see that there is a status that is active of whether or not you can do anything with it. There's also, you can customize the status, the other item of status, so that whether or not you continue to, even though it may still be going, whether or not you still can spend money out of that particular one or not. As we go through additional information that is available to us, primary contacts, ship tos, billing, the contract information, the dimensions. As you work within a grant, and you can do this also with any of your GL accounts, you can tie dimensions to them and require certain dimensions to be used. In this particular one, we see that certain departments, funds, and restrictions are used, and these can be overridden by you, the CFO, if you need to, but this cuts down on mistakes that may happen as a result of just data entry. Notice here, billable employee expenses. And so I'll show you more about that in just a moment, but keep that in mind. You can incur expense as you incur expenses that the grants are going to cover. You can mark it as billable, and you can go through and automatically provide the bill. In addition to that, when you go to resources and pricing, if you're billing for time to a grant, you can enter that information ahead of time. You can put your employees that may be working on that, give their labor rate. You can also do a cost plus fee that you may have to add to that to help cover your overhead on, and then you're allowed to cover your overhead there. And so when these particular employees began to handle their timesheets, it automatically is going to allow you to put together the invoice based on their billing rates. Then you have a summary of this, and if you notice here, you have a summary of money that has come in, expenses that have happened, the budget itself, hours, as you keep hours for a particular grant, employee expenses, so on and so forth. And so all this information is available at a glance. Invoice options, how you're going to handle your invoice options, and even down to task, where you are in the process, what particular task and where you are in the process with it. And so the project and grant module within Intacct that is available within it is quite robust and allows you to do a number of things. In addition I mentioned a moment ago, the time and expenses. I don't have time to go into this in detail, but you're also able within Intacct to have timesheets and expense sheets. Employees are able to go in and enter their own. You can also import this with some mobile third parties. I mentioned them earlier with some integration issues. JMT can point you at some additional ones. They're able to do it mobile. So if you have people out in the field, they're able to enter those expenses, whether it be mileage, whether it be actual expenses, whether it be expenses out of pocket or expenses with a organization credit card, however it might happen. And so by doing that, then you're able to go through and enter these timesheets and expenses. You're able to, there's an approval process. The approval process can be set up however you'd like for it to be. A number of people, same way with AP, and I'll look at that just briefly in a moment. The same way with AP, that you're able to set up based on dollar amount, based on who has the ability at certain dollar amounts, how many approvals you need, so on and so forth. So the timesheet and expenses are a significant piece that are available to you as well. Now let's look briefly at the AP. AP, you have the ability, of course, to have all your vendor information. Let me just look at that briefly. I don't have a whole lot of time with this, but if you look into the AP, the amount of information, again, that you're able to do, and I mentioned this earlier, you could able to do the different dimensions as you did with the time and expenses, and with the projects and grants, you're able to set those up ahead of time. Payment information, Intacct has the ability to do third-party checks through Intacct, through integrated services, through American Express, so on and so forth. The ability to do ACH or NACHA files to banks, and the possibilities there are pretty significant. So you have your vendors within account payables, and then you have, of course, your bills. And when you go through bills, you have all kinds of approval processes available to you. And if you look right here, and this particular one has not done it, but I wanted to point this out to you. And we have this particular bill. You've got the numbers, you've got the addresses, you got all the information, the dimensions, so on and so forth. You also have the ability to make that billable to the grant. And so if you mark that in this particular one, you got the Claremont Impact Study. And if we had marked that billable, then when we got over to get ready to send invoices to our grants, it would automatically pull up any timesheets, any expenses, any purchases, like so employee expenses, or any other purchases that the organization has done that are going to be reimbursed by that grant. And so it's not only streamline and workflow that makes things more efficient, but you cut down the possibilities of errors with that. And so I'm able then to go into projects and grants and invoice them, and simply pull up the invoice for that particular grant, and every one of them that have not been invoiced before will pop up and allow you to send a customized invoice to them. And so that's some of the possibilities with Intacct. You can see here, you can do recurring bills, you have approvals within bills, and so on and so forth. Finally, I want to look at cash management, I think. Within cash management, some of the things that I mentioned, I mentioned the payment files and so on and so forth. But a new upgrade within Intacct is their bank reconciliation process. And so when you go to reconcile a bank statement, it's very, very streamlined. And so you pull up your bank, you're able to enter your ending balance. You can also attach a statement, or you can actually attach a file from the bank to import that data into. So there's 3 ways to do bank reconciliation with Intacct. One is, as you're going to see here in just a moment, it's the manual of matching up from your paper bank statement to what you have in Intacct. A second way is to import transactions from your bank. So you do an export from your bank, import into Intacct. And then finally, you can do a bank feed. That's the newest feature. Because this is a demo and it's not connected directly to a bank, a live bank, I am not able to show that to you today, but you have the ability to have a bank feed automatically send your transactions to Intacct. By doing that, what we're seeing with our customers, we're seeing many of our customers that are basically reconciling their bank account on a day-by-day basis. So not only are you able to see reports on real time, but you're able to match up what you have with your accounting software and your bank, and make sure those things match up on almost a real-time basis as those are imported in with the bank feed. So you go and you continue your reconciliation, and you can see it's a pretty simple process. You're matching up. You can you have your filter where you can choose what you're looking at, whether it's matched or unmatched, whether it's checks and debits, deposits and credits, or all of them. And then you apply the filter, and when you're able to go in there and you just go through and you mark each one of those. After you're done and after everything is reconciled out, you reconcile it. And when you're able, then you're able to go back, and when you view reconciliation histories, you're able to see a reconciliation report. You're able to see an outstanding items report. You're able to see any attachments that you might have with it. you're able to even reopen that. And so as you're going through, then as you, in a particular case, if you're closing your month or closing your year, after you do your bank reconciliations, after you've done your financial reports, and have checked any outliers, that sort of thing, in cash management, you're able to also then, or in your general ledger, you're able to go in and close your books and everything is taken care of. You can also reopen those books. Used to be a bigger headache to do that, but you're able to reopen those books and change things, but you're able to close them, and that way no one else is going back in there and making any changes behind you. It's always frustrating when you think you have everything balanced and somebody goes in behind you and makes changes. So that gives you a rundown, a pretty broad rundown of what Intacct can do. What I say to you is, and from the beginning I mentioned the whole issue of streamlining and efficiency. What I'd say to you concerning that is, oftentimes when people look at software or look at upgrading software, they look at that and talk about, well, the cost that's involved with that. I would say to you that some of the pieces of your day that are cut out as a result of integration and efficiency is worth probably a staff member, or at least a partial staff member, by giving you the time and the ability to be able to do what you were really hired to do, and that is to look at financial data, make decisions based on that financial data, and make recommendations to your board, to your CEO, to give information to the grants that fund your organization. Any of those people, you're able to give the information that they're looking for in such a way to continue the mission that you're on. So I'll leave it with that, and we'll stop right there and see if, I don't know if any questions have come in, see if there are any questions that I need to answer before we go on, or before we close.
All right, thank you, Mark. So like Mark said, we are going to open it up for questions from the audience. So if you have anything you would like to ask Mark about Sage Intacct, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And to get us started, we had a question from David, who says, for this software, what is the range of not-for-profit organization size that is recommended?
Okay. Say that again. I'm seeing.
Sure.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
That's okay. What is the range of not-for-profit organization size that is recommended?
The range of not-for-profit size organization.
Yeah. I think he's asking like what size organization Sage Intacct would be recommended for.
Right. Well, let me say this. I think some very small nonprofits in the past have had difficulty getting into a software like Intacct, and I don't know where you are on that size range, but JMT has recently put together some entry points that allow smaller organizations to get in. So I don't know if you're on the smaller end of that. On the top end, I'm not sure that there's a limit on that, but we've dealt with organizations as large. I personally, in the last 3 months, have dealt with organizations as large as $100 million a year. So, but on the smaller end of that, on just a few million, you need to inquire and ask about our new Jumpstart program, because there are some opportunities there that I wish years ago, when I was in some smaller organizations, would have had opportunity to do that. And so I would say that there are opportunities more and more for the total range, from the very smallest up to the largest organizations with Intacct. And obviously with the smaller stepping into it as a smaller organization, there are going to be some things that I showed you today that may not be available on that. But what you can do is get in on at the ground level on that, be able to take care of all your basic needs. The dashboards would be there, et cetera, and your reporting and that sort of thing. And so you're able to do those. And then as your organization grows, the system being in the cloud, you can add those additional modules at a later time as you grow with that. So I would just encourage you to inquire concerning your size, and not knowing if it's small or large, but if my guess is it's small and you're concerned you can't get into it, I would suggest you take a look at, not only are they giving you an entry point that is very affordable, they're also doing that on a subscription basis, on a monthly subscription basis, I believe. I don't deal in the money, I just deal in the software and the consulting side of that. But they're also doing that on a monthly subscription basis where you're basically financing that at a very, very affordable rate. And it really makes it affordable for small organizations to get on board. Other questions?
Thank you, Mark. Yeah. Could you talk a little bit about some of the security features that Sage Intacct offers?
Okay, so we didn't go into that today. Security within users, you have the ability to restrict what a user. Of course, obviously you can just change. If an employee leaves, you're able to just take them out of the system, inactivate them, and they're no longer in the system. In addition to that, I might just give you a quick glance. We're not going to go into detail on this, but if we go into users, if you're talking about security within users, if you were to look at that and look at the permissions that a user would have, if you'll notice, these are all the modules that are involved in here. But if you go into one of these modules, these are the options. And obviously a lot of these you can just click an all and you can go through and take care of it, but you have the ability to really narrow that down and put it where you want it. So as far as that goes, as far as security for people outside your organization, Intacct, Sage Intacct, Sage is a large company. They have the ability, the security has been very good. I don't know, I can't answer you, and we could find that for you, the specific credentials on that. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I've never heard of any issues on the security side of that with Sage. And that's always a concern in this day and age. I understand that. Very good question. I do not know the specific credentials, but that has not been an issue for us.
Great. Okay, a couple more. Will Intacct allow you to make payments through third-party systems?
Yes, I kind of glanced at that. I imagine you probably had that in there before I looked at it, but you can do that. Sage Intacct has a third-party check writing option. In addition to that, they have a built-in with American Express where you can do through your American Express card. You can also do check writing with American Express, or you can integrate with a third-party payment service as well. And so any of those, so there's plenty of options there on third-party. In fact, that became a big issue with COVID as people were quarantined to their homes and no longer had access to the printers and checks and so on and so forth they had. And that became a big demand, and Intacct has had that in place for some time.
Okay, and is this software strictly cloud-based or on-site as well?
It's strictly cloud-based, and we don't see that as a negative. We see that totally as a positive. The benefits of that are that first of all, you're not having to handle IT where you're at. I'm sorry, I'm at home if you're hearing my dogs. If you're cloud-based, you're not having to handle any of the IT yourself. Secondly, the security issues we've talked about, and you're not having to provide that own security. But probably the biggest piece of the puzzle is every 4 times a year, Intacct comes out with new releases into their software. And because you're not buying a set software and taking it home with you and putting it on your computers, but instead you're doing the cloud-based, then you're getting all those updates each time. And so the cloud-based, and it's very, very much an advantage.
Great, thank you. And the last question I have for now is, does Sage Intacct allow you to consolidate for multiple entities?
Yes, and I didn't hit on that, and I apologize for that. You're able to do that. Let me look at, am I still sharing? Yes. If you look right here, you have the different top levels, and we don't have time to go in that detail, but you have, so as CFO, you may have top level, but then you have different sites, and so you're able to pull all those entities together. And so somebody that has access just to their entity, that's all they would have access to. So if you had a controller somewhere or account payable person, and they would just work within their entity, but then you as CFO could work in from the top level. So absolutely. And in
Great,
fact,
thank you.
in fact, JMT usually recommends that on day one, even if you do not have multiple entities, because it's available to you and it's put there, and then as you grow, you can always work into that.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. So that looks like all the questions that we have for you today. Eric says thank you for the presentation. We are going to wrap this up now. So thank you all for joining JMT Consulting for this webinar today, and thank you, Mark, for your time. And we hope you all leave. Sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry, let me just make one more comment. If you have other questions, I don't have a slide with my email on it, but when they send you the email, and if you have other questions that you'd like me to look at for you, I'd be glad to. So just reply on that and tell them that you'd like for me to reach out to you. I'd be glad to do that. So.
Yeah, definitely. We'll include Mark's contact information in the follow-up email. So we just hope you all leave here with a clear understanding of the Sage Intacct system and how it could be used at your nonprofit. And like Mark mentioned earlier, if you would like to learn more about JMT's new rapid and affordable implementation program that we're offering to new nonprofits, please join us on July 16th for a webinar on that. It's titled Jumpstart for Sage Intacct, How to Make Implementing This Powerful ERP Solution Accessible for Any Nonprofit. You can find more details and register by visiting our website, jmtconsulting.com, and clicking on the Training and Events tab, but we will also send you a registration link in the follow-up email. So thank you all, and I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.